Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with a 1/6 scale review video for the ZY Toys M240 Bravo set. This is something that I kind of always wanted to do a review on. Well, not just the M240, but also their Browning M2, because I have mentioned it frequently in several videos, and it's also something that I have recommended for use on various projects, namely with the cradle sets that I've designed over the last couple years. The unit that we have here is not one that belongs to my personal collection and is actually on loan from a customer of mine who hired me to design the swivel mount that this thing will be connected to. The swivel mount itself is going to be the subject matter of another model showcase video, and something that's going to be posted in the video description listed below. So since I had the opportunity to have the model on hand, and since this is not exactly something that I will be putting on any of the builds that I have going on right now or possibly down the road, I might as well take the opportunity to give one a thorough in-box review. So starting with the model itself, ZY Toys is a Chinese-based company that's been around now for about 5 or 6 years. I've first heard about them, again, about 6 years or so ago when the Browning M2 made its way to the marketplace. When I was looking at the Browning M2 on the various photographs that I saw, to me it looks and feels just like the Dragon one. And if you've built enough Dragon M2s as I have, you'll start noticing small little subtleties that are exclusive to that unit. And the ZY Toys unit have all of those in spades. In fact, like stated before, the ZY Toys, in my opinion, is nothing more than a carbon copy of the Dragon tooling. And you know what? Spoiler alert, that's going to be something that I'm going to be mentioning again when I crack the M240 open and show you all the small little details that it has. Which is actually something that's not necessarily a negative, because both Dragon M2s and the M240s were excellent pieces and were ones that, once dried up, really did hurt the marketplace. So to see them back on the market in the ZY Toy skies is something that is definitely welcomed indeed. Whether or not it's just a straight up pirated unit, or if it's just ZY Toys getting access to the Dragon tooling, that's something that, you know, I'm not going to be able to answer in this video, but it is something that I did want to mention. So the ZY Toys M240 has been on the market now for, I don't know, about, again, 3 to 4 years, if that. And the unit comes pre-assembled and gives you many of the accessories that we have here, which I'll touch upon once I crack the box open. These models here are typically procured on the internet. I've seen them for sale on eBay, AliExpress. You know, it's basically an internet type thing. You're not going to be able to track one of these down in a toy store, if those exist anymore, or some that you would track down in a hobby shop. So starting with the exterior quality, I will say that the box is fantastic quality. In fact, it's kind of a shame that the thing comes in such a box this nice, because it probably adds to the cost of the unit. The model itself runs anywhere between 30 to 25 some odd US dollars. And, you know, that is something that may be considered pretty pricey. However, since when these 240s were originally parted out, when Dragon was producing them, they were basically selling for almost the same price. So, you know, the prices have stayed basically stagnant from the two releases. So back to the graphic design. For the front picture here, we just have a photograph of the unit in question with some basic typography. Here we have the ZY Toys logo. This is the model number right here. Obviously, it's a choking hazard. It has some small fiddly bits on it. This is not something that is going to be child friendly. This is definitely something more or less geared for an adult collector. So, good quality stock on the box, as I stated before, and the thing opens up, revealing this very nice presentation on the inside, which is all comprised of vacuum form clear plastic packaging. Again, very reminiscent to what I would see on some of the older Dragon figures of the day, you know, when you would pop open and it would be in a nice little pamphlet here on the side of the flap box that were present on those. So, opening up the model fully, just jiggle this out of the packaging, set that aside. Again, it's very well packaged. Okay, so starting with the biggest thing, which is the M240 itself. The way you see it, by the way, was exactly how it's packaged. I didn't do any sort of assembly on the unit whatsoever. Of course, I did take it out of the packaging to design the cradle set, but as for actual assembly, none of the sort was done to it. The unit comes pre-painted and weathered in the condition that we have here. So getting up closer, let's start from the stock to the muzzle. You can see right here the detailing found on the buttstock. Of course, this is the Bravo variant, which has the polymer buttstock, which has that pebble texture to it. It's got those finger grooves integrally molded on, which is an iconic bit of detailing found on the M240 or just the FN MAG bell-fed machine gun family of weapons. On the receiver itself, it's very nicely detailed and also has this grayish silvery color to it, which again is quite typical for what you would see on the real M240 receivers. All of the rivet pattern detailing is there. The charging handle is functional and spring-loaded. Nice little touch. The pistol grip does have that M240 FN Mag / MG42 looking like pistol grip. It even has the correct knurling pattern found on the grips. The trigger is there, it's separately molded. And the piece tends to want to wiggle out on you like this. So this is something to watch out for if you have the ZY Toys unit or even the Dragon unit, because, spoiler alert, the Dragon was the exact same set. On this side of the receiver here, we even have a marking that is probably silkscreen on in place. Doesn't look like to be a decal or anything, and it has all the pertinent information. It has the US property mark, the M240, as well as the the serial number, and all the other little tidbits of information. On the rear sight here, it does flip up, which is a nice little bit of detailing. However, the aperture is molded solid. Normally on my builds, I would take a small little Dremel bit to that just to drill it out so you get that nice little aperture detailing. On the feed tray cover, it has the upgraded version with the integral Picatinny rail section found on top, and you'll notice a nice little touch is that it is a different color from the rest of the receiver. This is something, again, that's true to form. If you've seen any real M240s, or if anyone has ever slung one of these, they'll be able to definitely collaborate on this. So the piece is fully functional, and you have the feed paw detailing on the inside. The tray does not flip up, it is just molded in the position that we have here, but it does have the weathering, which is typically seen on the tray itself. The bolt and bolt carrier detailing is decently rendered. And if anyone wants to know more about this, I recommend checking out the Forgotten Weapons channel, where Ian McCollum really does a good job with going into the minutia on how the bolt works, how the lineage to the BAR, and also just the history of the FN Mag in general. But that's definitely something to watch his video over, if you haven't done so already. Moving forward takes us to the carry handle. Of course, on the real unit, this is how you detach the barrel and swap it out. On the model here, that's not the case. The piece is just loose like this, and the barrel cannot come out, as far as I can tell. We have the ventilated heat shield, which does flip up, like you see. The bottom portion here of the Picatinny rail does pop off. And it's one of those pieces that a little drop of glue or two couldn't really hurt. On the bipod, it is fully positionable, which is excellent, and it also opens up, like you see here. Moving up to the front, we have like a birdcage type flash suppressor. Some of these slats are molded clean, while the other ones are not. That is something to point out, and the whole piece can pop off, so again, that's something to watch out for. The tripod mounts, which on the 240 are right here on the front, and there's a second one right here on the back, and these are molded solid, so if you are going to adapt this for a tripod, you are going to have to drill these out. On the lower portion, we have the ejection port, and it does have a little cover that is functional, which is an excellent feature to have. So you can display this in either the firing state or the sealed up state. And that's basically all there is to it for the MG itself. So let's look at the remainder of the accessories. So first we have is a suppressor right over here. And this simply just goes over the birdcage. Putting the piece on was a bit on the snug side, but it's definitely doable. You don't need any special tools to do it. However, it's probably best to do it with the birdcage off of the remainder of the barrel, just so it prevents any sort of breakage happening with the main barrel itself. The next bit of detailing is an optic, which is an L-can. Has some nice detailing rendered on. The lens looks really good. And on the front portion here, we have a little screen filter. It does have that little mesh pattern integrally molded on. And what's cool is you can even just pop it off and have the L-can without the filter in place. The L-can simply pops onto the top pick rail that we have right here on the feed cover, as I touched upon before. The piece is supposed to just plug onto any of those little holes that were showcased before on the top of the rail. However, it's a bit on the loose side, so if you are going to mount this on, you might want to remove that little stem on the bottom and just super glue it in place. The next accessory is an ANPEQ2 laser sight. This is excellently detailed, which hopefully this comes out on camera. It has the labels and all the other little details that would be found on the real piece. And this also plugs on the Picatinny rail that's supplied on the lower portion of the handguard. Just plugs in place. And it actually holds on much better compared to the L-can that I touched upon before. If I just snap it in one of these little mounting holes here, once pushed in, you can see that the piece holds in place very well. Of course, you can mount it on either side of the handguard, thus the beauty of the Picatinny rail system. Also included with the laser sight is the pressure pad, which obviously on the real one's how you turn the unit on and off. It's also very nicely detailed. This would connect to the piece, and then you would have to personally find the place on the unit to adhere it, which is basically just like it is on the real one. The next bit of equipment is the bullet belt, and this is probably one of the coolest things on this whole set. The piece uses a real disintegrating link bullet belt for this detailing. It has some good flexibility to it, and it is as realistic as you can possibly get. I just pulled the links apart so you get a good idea on the little metal sheet steel that's used to make the tabs. And they clip in place basically with the same amount of force as the real one. The 308s themselves are excellently rendered. They are all made out of a single piece of CNC brass and have the look and shape of the actual round. One thing that is not present though is the projectiles themselves are not painted. They are just, brass coloring of the remainder of the round. So if you are going to be modeling this, I do recommend hitting the projectiles with a little swipe of copper paint. This is one easy way to enhance the detailing. And if you want to go a little bit crazier, you could then add the armor piercing and the tracer rounds by painting the tips with the appropriate colors. Red for tracer, I think black for AP if I'm not mistaken. The ammunition loads very simply. You just take the rounds as you do on the real one. Make sure the brass is to the grass. Put it into the feed mechanism. Then just close the top cover. Of course, on the real one, you would rack this and then you would be good to go. But on the model one here, that's not going to be the case. As you can see, once the tray is closed, the rounds do not fall out and just dangle right there as they would on the real unit. The next and final thing I want to mention is with the ammo can, and this is probably one of the most interesting and probably the weakest aspect on the entire set. So the ammo can itself, it's all molded out of plastic, it's hollow, and it is fully functional as you can see with the way the lid works. The handle is also a multi-piece component with little metal hinge mechanisms, which is again true to form to the real one. Even has the little pull tab handle that's found on the side portion of the ammo can. On the side over here, it has the appropriate detailing with the stamped, embossed information that's present, and the hinge also has the correct pattern of rivets. However, where the ammo can falls short is with two areas. First is scale. The ammo can is too long. The real ammo can would come out to about there, so there's about 1/4 of an inch in length that shouldn't be. The second is actually with the information on the can itself. And it's one of those things where unless you are, in the know, or if you're a nerd with this stuff, you're definitely not going to notice it. In order to fully highlight the shortcomings of this can over here, I need to compare and contrast it with the real one, which fortunately I can. Okay, so for a second I'm going to be turning into Chris Bartocci because I need to go over all this information here because this is something that actually means something and it's very relevant to the 1/6 scale one. To the casual observer, this just looks like gibberish or just jargon, but each one of these lines and each one of these words actually says some important information about what's inside the can itself. So, as a broad stroke, this is the same 7.62 millimeter US military or NATO ammo can. This one here is basically the same design that the US military has been using now for at least the last 30-something years. The can itself is, as you can see, has basically all the same detailings on the exterior as the Model 1, with the exception of that little dimple here, which is absent on the Model 1, but it still has that little angle cut found on the top, which if we saw my other 50 caliber video, that's so that this can open up partially and you can actually feed it while keeping the lid on. On the side over here, you can see the embossed information, very similar to the one on the model, along with the what are actually spot welds, and I erroneously called them rivets on this one, but in actuality they're spot welds. Anyway, so back to the information. First, you'll see that there's a couple info found right here on the top portion of the can, and this indicates links, and I'm not really sure offhand what the other marking is portraying to. However, right here on the front of the ammo can, we have a lot of important information. So right here it says 200 cartridges of ammunition. The second line is the caliber, which is 7.62 millimeter NATO, which of course is the same caliber as the M240. This is where things get really interesting, and it tells you exactly the composition of the ammunition itself. So we have 4 ball rounds of M80 ammunition, followed by 1 round of M62 tracer. Right here indicates that it is a linked ammunition belt as opposed to the things being in boxes, and the link is the M13 link. On the bottom portion over here, we have a code for the manufacturer as well as just the serial number itself. SB, I want to say, is Sealer and Below, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm a little hazy. I'm not sure if Sealer and Below actually makes U.S. military ammunition. I mean, I know they make ammo, and great ammo, but I'm not sure if that's the case with this. But anyway, this one here, SB, generally when you see these ammo cans, it has LC on it for Lake City, and then this long code, which I'm pretty sure means more information than I could go into in this video. But if you know this information, feel free to put that in the comment section below. But now that you know what it looks like on the real one, let's re-examine what it says here on the Model 1. First, though, I do want to touch upon the width. If I take this one here and I scale it up, there we go. You can see how much longer it is compared to the real one. So with the real can off of the table, I could zoom in now on the 1/6 scale one so you get a better idea on what the information says that's printed on. First, we have right here 200 cartridges. The next line, though, is where things get really, really interesting. 7.62 millimeter blank M82. This ammo can here is not intended for live ammunition. It's actually intended for use with blanks. Whoever was doing the design work for this ammo can here, or coming up with the typography for the markings, must have been looking at either a surplus ammo can or more than likely found a picture of one on the internet and it was loaded with blanks. So it was probably a publicity image or something. So obviously this is not something that you would see on, in use photographs, or if you're depicting your figures or your vehicle as a in theater or in a war zone type setting model. The M82 is the NATO blank cartridge, and again we have the little marking for the link, and of course it's the M13 link. But what is missing is that really long serial number that's listed below, which would have the manufacturer number on it, like LC or in my case SB, and then that really long number. So that is definitely a miss found on this ammo can here, because basically every single one that I've ever seen, that information is always there, even regardless of if it's loaded with blanks or not. However, if I am wrong on that, feel free to put that in the comment section below. This is just something that caught my eye personally from my, various travels. Again, this is something that's probably not going to be realized by 90% of the people out there who buy these sets and who, utilize them on their builds or in their figure displays, but it is something that I personally found interesting and something I wanted to share with the rest of you. Aside from the goofy things that I mentioned with the ammo can, the remainder of the set is solid. The unit is very well detailed, the paintwork is acceptable, and the thing is honestly ready to go out of the box. The accessories that the unit gives you is a nice touch, and it's definitely something that would be appreciated for anyone that's modeling modern era military figures or military vehicles. Like I mentioned before, some of the pieces are held on in a really frail or chintzy manner, and if you are going to display it with those accessories added, you are going to have to glue them in place just to keep them where they need to be, and it'll also save some headaches with your figure display. One other thing I want to mention is that for the longest time, there was a pretty vacant gap in the hobby for a really nicely detailed M240. The original Dragon sets came out in the early or mid 2000s, and they were only sold with figures. It was a figure pairing type thing. So if you wanted an M240 Bravo like this one here, you were going to have to get one as a parted out set, which again was limited in quantities and was also fairly expensive. Unlike some of the other sets that were released by Dragon, like the M2, the 1919, even the 8K and the M16, where those were offered in unassembled kit form or versions, that was never done with the M240. So the addition of this unit being re-entered into the marketplace in this current configuration is something that is definitely appreciated. And if you're out there looking for an M240 Bravo for whatever figure vehicle setup you have in mind, the ZY Toys one is highly, highly recommended. And with that, that wraps up this model review video for the ZY Toys 1/6 scale M240 Bravo set. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, being 1/6 scale content like this one over here, or the other smaller scale model showcase videos that frequently get posted to this channel. Another way to keep in loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook. There I have photographs of the other 1/6 scale work that I have ongoing and have posted in the past, and this also includes the smaller scale content that I just mentioned. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by EastCoastArmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again, and I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Take care.